everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here this evening. I was just humbly reminded by Leslie Hofforth, the director of Forest Park Forever here, who I'm so grateful for us opening this space about God's plan, right? And that God has a plan for everyone. And so I always open up my meetings with prayer. God, I thank you for this opportunity for us to come together from all of our different walks of life, from all of our different spaces and lived experiences here in the 10th Ward, to come together and share like-minded goals and visions to carry the 10th Ward forward and then be a liaison for the rest of the city. God, thank you for bringing us safely here. Thank you for the ones that are on their way. And we will be so careful to honor the responsibility to share the good news of not just this meeting, but all the great works that are going to come out of the 10th Ward. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we're going to get started because our first speaker does have another engagement that she has to make. I thank them for taking the opportunity to come out today. Again, my name is Shameem Clark-Hubbard. I humbly serve as your alder person here, your alder lady. I've done myself here in the 10th Ward. The 10th Ward is made up of 8 amazing neighborhoods: Whiteout Skinker to Bolivar Place, West End, Visitation Park, Academy Sherman Park, Lewis Place, and Fountain Park neighborhoods. And what I said when I was running, there's 8 neighborhoods plus you and me equals the power of 10. And this is just the exact vision I had about these one-on-one meetings. I did these one-on-one meetings as the alderperson of the 26th Ward, but I wanted to carry them on here, even with the bigger geography, because I was excited about so many neighborhoods that have been systemically and historically separated being able to come together and work together in community. And that's what I see in this room today. I see representation from all over the 8 neighborhoods in the 10th Ward, and I'm excited about it. So I'll start off. We have the mayor's administration here to talk about the ARPA funding. This was a direct request by one of our constituents from our last one-on-one meeting. And so we have Ms. Grace Young here, and also from the mayor's administration, Mr. Kevin Bailey is here. That's our liaison. He's the amazing Kevin Bailey. He's also a 10th Ward resident. And so we'll let them go first. I do want to acknowledge other people in the room because, again, this meeting, this one-on-one is not, it's informal in a way that you're able to step aside and speak to someone from our administration, from the police department. We have Captain Marks here from the 5th District Police Department. The 2nd District may be on the way as well. We also have the Democratic Director from the Board of Elections. Why is he here? And why was he carrying all this stuff in there? Because the city of St. Louis has purchased new electronic voting machines. And we want to make sure we don't wait till Election Day for you to know that and for you to see that and be able to touch and experience them. So he's here as well. But again, we'll start off with Ms. Grace Young. She'll do her presentation. We'll ask a few questions, and then we'll let her get on to her next experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Young. I'm Senior Advisor to Mayor Jones, and today I'm here to give a quick ARPA update, see if I can answer any questions, and if I can't, I am happy to follow up on it. So everyone in the room should have gotten a packet from Kevin. If you don't have a packet, please raise your hand. I'll make sure Kevin brings you one. Kevin, we have one back here. Okay, so the first thing I'm asking you all to flip to is this page. It's blue and yellow. I just thought I'd highlight some of our initial ARPA investments. I am saying it's a highlight. It does not capture everything. So the first section is talking a bit more about our COVID-19 response. I'm going to take a step back just in case folks don't know what ARPA is, and I'm realizing I was saying an acronym, but it's the American Rescue Plan Act funds that President Joe Biden had given out to different neighborhoods. So the ARPA funding was that each different community had gotten a different amount of money. And sorry, just to let you guys know, the second page would have been this page with a lot of tables and charts. We got a total of $498 million, if I round, for the city of St. Louis. So I'm just here again to share some of the highlights and answer any specific questions you all have. So the first section here on this pamphlet talks about our COVID-19 response. We've been partnering with different community-based healthcare centers. They're more commonly known as the federally qualified health centers, such as Affinia Healthcare. And through that process and through the Department of Health, we've distributed over 13,000 gift cards for those who've gotten a COVID-19 vaccination. We've also supported our working families. We've given out aid to over 3,000 households with rental assistance. We also offered direct cash assistance to over 9,000 families, and then we distributed nearly $2 million in healthcare providers to help providers recover from the pandemic. We've also been investing in our young people. Some of the highlights are that we put $6.5 million towards year-round youth jobs, and we've been partnering with Metro Transit to ensure that kids who are between the ages of 13 and 25 have access to free transit. We've also been doing a lot of work around economic justice. Mayor Jones has committed $150 million from the American Rescue Plan funds towards North St. Louis for economic justice, investing directly into neighborhoods. And some of those highlighted here are that 900 of the small businesses in all 14 wards have received a $5,000 grant. We've had $14 million towards affordable housing development that will occur, and we've also been fixing our streets directly into infrastructure. We put more than $40 million towards making major repairs that will be coming. You won't see it yet, but we are working towards it. We currently have 3 different engineering consultant firms who are working on designing those changes along 5 major arterials here in the city. And so, again, that's just a highlight. This here, it's a little bit more wonky, but if you are someone who's very curious to see where the investments were, these are the different board bills related to ARPA, where you can see and go online and look for more information. I can email a copy of this to your alderwoman so you all can have a copy if you're interested, because those blue lines are hyperlinks directly to the board bills. But happy to take any questions if anyone has any. Oh, do you want me to pass the mic?
Or if you can probably just repeat the question.
Okay.
That way you can stay up.
Okay, so the first question was someone asking how much of our funding we've currently spent. I would have to pull that up to get you the most recent number. Sorry, I didn't look it up right before the meeting, but if you go onto the ARPA website, we have 2 different ways you can look at the money. One is what we call a transparency portal, and one is the financial dashboard. So anyone who's really interested in knowing more about those details, you can see how we update monthly around the 13th of every month with information on how much of the money is what we call programmed. Another word for that is obligated from the appropriated funds, and then how much of that has been spent. I can look it up and I'll let you know, and I'll also email it to the alderwoman so she can send it out and any follow-up information. But in terms of your other question on is there a risk for that money to go back to the federal government, the administration and the Board of Aldermen, we're all very committed to ensuring we don't lose a cent. So we are reviewing and always checking with the departments on how well we're doing in moving the money towards being programmed, and then how much of that is moving to being spent. One thing to keep in mind with the spent number is that all of our departments, whatever program they're working on, they're in different stages. So some of them needed more time to start up, and we're gonna start seeing expenditures, while others we might not see, honestly, for another year in that money moving because of all the back-end work they're currently working on. So the spent number, I wouldn't take it too much to heart because there's a lot of variables and why that's changing per day. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Yeah, so the deadlines are that all of the money needs to be appropriated by the end of 2024, and all of the money needs to be spent by the end of 2026. As of right now, we don't have concerns that any of that money at the end of 2026 is going to go back to the federal government.
Thanks for taking your personal time to come in. The transparency portal is really great. You really dive into stuff. And I was looking, I guess my main question is relative to the water infrastructure. And I was trying to see how much of the ARP was going to going towards the water infrastructure, or why isn't our funding going to the water infrastructure, if that's the case? And when I was looking at the infrastructure number, I only saw 1.6 million actually allocated, but I'm here I'm seeing a lot more bills. So I don't know if that's just a timing thing with the transparency portal, or what? And basically, I want to know, is any of the art going towards water infrastructure? Was that discussed to avoid a large rate increase for the citizens of St. Louis?
So I can speak from my perspective. There's of course a lot of people who've been involved in these processes. To answer your question more directly, there is no money that has gone towards a water infrastructure and sewer lines. But that wasn't because it was an oversight. What we were really hoping for is money from the state and the federal government. Unfortunately, that didn't work out the way we had anticipated. That doesn't mean the administration is done trying. Mayor Jones is advocating, Congresswoman Bush is also advocating every month in trying to get money towards the water infrastructure because we recognize the burden that has caused on the residents in some of the households. But your second part of your question on infrastructures, so the question was, online it only looks like about 1.6 million was appropriated towards infrastructure. That might be honestly how the Treasury Department, so U.S. Treasury, is categorizing it. So some of the infrastructure projects are captured under a category called revenue replacement. And so then that's why it might not be showing up as infrastructure. That is actually something we are talking about internally on how we can bucket these out even further so an everyday resident can really understand where the money is going, because the U.S. Treasury categories aren't that descriptive or helpful in being able to understand that, but much more than 1.6 million has gone into infrastructure.
Quick follow-up, this might be for Shameem. And I'm not expecting an answer, just some feedback. I think I heard you say the water infrastructure board, they're trying to get money from the federal government. I guess the way I look at these things, it's a major issue for us. And we have this money. We have these monies, we have the Rams monies. When you add it all up, it's like almost $3 million per St. Louis City resident. It's like we have this windfall money and we have control over it. Why not? Why kick anything to the federal government for something that important? So just feedback. I'm not expecting an answer.
Yeah, sorry, I almost knocked over the table. I think that's helpful feedback. In terms of the RAM settlement funds, we're working really closely with the President's Office, Board of Aldermen, as well as the Comptroller's Office. I know folks aren't going to be super jazzed about it, but we are going to launch another survey. And in that survey process, we're asking those sort of questions and better understanding where you want to see those investments. So I encourage you to take it if that's how you'd want to see the settlement funds being spent. But unfortunately, with the local ARPA dollars, by the time we realize the federal government has, as of yet, I'm not saying they won't, fingers crossed that they do, did not award the different funding sources towards our water department to fix the old pipes, we had appropriated most of the ARPA funding. But it doesn't mean that that's a done deal, and we can always look at other opportunities for sure and leverage all of the different money that is available.
As I read the ARPA thing, it could be used for water infrastructure.
Yes.
You're saying the money was already allocated for that clarification?
No, sorry. And I will pass it to you. No, it was always an opportunity that we could put it towards water infrastructure. What I was saying is that most of the money was appropriated by the time we had found out from the state and federally that we weren't being awarded funding at that time. Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I was only going to follow up and saying that as served on the Board of Aldermen, as former 26th Ward resident, alderperson, and now this was actually my first time as an alderperson hearing about the need in the water department, in the water division. So, and I served on several committees in both of my tenures here. So I think that what she's saying about the timeline makes a difference. If we had known this, I'm sure that our mayor's administration, or even the prior mayor's administration, would have made those kind of allocations to say, because we know what happens when we don't invest in the water. And we own the water department here, which is what's different here in the city of St. Louis. And it's an amazing water department, right? But we also know we can look across the country and see what happens when you don't invest in your water departments, right? And so that's why we know this is a need. And the last time that someone tried to do this at the Board of Aldermen was 2015, and it didn't make it out of committee. So now this was something that needed to be done that got kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of kicked down the road. And when the need came up, we were on, about to fall off the cliff with it. So we had to do what we had to do. But to my colleague, Alderwoman Schweitzer did an amazing job of trying to get this communicated out into the, not just through her committee, but in the community. And then with that being said, she is 100%, I tell you, anything that comes up at the Board of Aldermen that there might be $5 left somewhere, she says, can we put it in the water department? So she, talking about the reappropriation or maybe the possibility of a reappropriation, she, along with others like myself, are gonna be advocating for that.
Just a point of clarification. So does that mean that when you finish with all the surveying and residents say, yes, we would like to have a rollback to the previous water bill prices, is that possible? That could be something that could be looked at in terms of removing that and placing monies in the pot instead of the residents bearing that?
And that's why I love questions like this, because, and my constituents know, and I'll repeat it as many times as I have to, I'm never gonna stand up here and lie to you. I'm never gonna stand up here and just say something that's gonna sound good, and I'm gonna say I can do something that I can't do, or say that the mayor's administration can do something that they wanna do but can't do. I'm gonna give you the facts, right? And then I'm gonna give us the tools as a community, as a body, to be able to advocate for ourselves. So with that being said, if any money is able to be reappropriated and we can bring it back and dial it back and take some of the burden off of our constituency base, I don't know any of my colleagues that would be against that, and I don't think the mayor's administration would be against that as well, but that's just not something that we can say a definite yes to foresee now. And as it relates to those surveys, right? And so the surveys are so important. Just like you showed up today, please make sure there's different surveys that go out, that we have our voices heard. I actually passed a resolution that advocated and fought for us to have a transparent and community-led appropriation process for the RAM settlement funding. It was a good way for us to do that, because again, this is the money that the city of St. Louis earned, right? And so if that's what you want, I would say show up. And your numbers, I tell my people all the time, show up and make sure your voices, all of our voices are heard, because when we leave it up to one or two people, it's always the squeakiest wheel gonna get the oil, and the loudest voices are gonna be heard, and the numbers will show. So I think that I will make sure if you need to add anything else to that, but that being said, anything that we can do to take some of the burden off of our constituency base or any demographic of our constituency base, I think we are all on board to do that. It's not out. They're still developing that. Are you on that committee?
Yeah. We are, so the question was, when would the RAM settlement survey be released? We're still in the process of finalizing that process. Don't quote me, but we're hoping in August. And so Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, I'm sure will send that out to you all, and we're gonna make sure it's open for about 60 days is what we're currently talking about. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Oh.
Yeah, so this is a question maybe for the mayor's office, but also for the alder lady. As COVID is ending, the emergency is over, and our Medicaid Social Services Department is disenrolling people and re-enrolling people in terms of requalifying them. I'm wondering to what extent, or is there awareness in the mayor's office, and perhaps out of your ward constituents as well, the extent to which that is impacting residents in our ward, in our city, and what kind of efforts, if any, the mayor's office we've got going that's helping people to either be aware of the processes going on. I speak to that just because of the point of COVID, assistance that people had with it, the process that happens with the state is that they mail you, the forms and stuff to verify your address and requalify. And if people have moved, if people, for whatever reason, don't get that mailing, they get disenrolled. thing is, many of the folks that are being disenrolled are children. So I'm wondering if that's an issue that you guys are aware of, or if you're not, perhaps would you be aware of it and, address maybe how it's being.
Yeah, so we are aware of the impact that the COVID-19 emergency declaration ending and how that impacted Medicaid. We have a fantastic director of health who waved that flag very early on into the process, and I'm really excited to share with you that some of the ARPA funding went into public benefit navigators, and the public benefit navigators are actually helping those who are struggling with Medicaid expansion and enrollment, and that is part of what your ARPA funding is going towards. So I'm happy to give you a card if you know of anyone who has been impacted, and they reach out to me, I'd be happy to connect them to the appropriate entity that can help them.
That'd be great. Great, thank you.
And this is another good thing about these meetings. I will make sure that I will invite Dr. Marty to our next meeting, because she can give an update, not just on that, but all the other amazing works that are coming out of our health department now. She's doing such a great job. So that would be good for us to come and get an update for your questions and for others that may arise.
I'm guessing that with work with the FQHCs, that part of what's happening is that they're actively working with their.
Yeah, so the contract actually went to the Integrated Health Network, and they're coordinating with FQHCs.
So it's like, very exciting, there's a lot of projects that the city's kind of investing in. How is the mayor's office measuring the success of various different programs, and is that something that's shared in the transparency portal as well?
So that is a process we're going to be developing more publicly to share it. Sorry, let me repeat your question. So the question was, with these different ARPA programs that we're currently funding, how are we measuring success? How are we tracking the impact it's having in the community? And so one of the things that will be happening is that we're going to be releasing what's known as a request for qualifications. Sorry, there was an alarm. I was just making sure it wasn't mine. And so the request for qualifications will be to hire a data and evaluation consultant. That doesn't mean we haven't been collecting data or doing that work. The consultant would help us take it a step further. But we've been collecting some information, what's known as key performance indicators. Short version is KPIs. And the KPIs have been tracked for some of our programs each month to see how well they're doing, who they're reaching, what they're impacting. And so with the data and evaluation consultant that we will be hiring, that way they'll be able to look at the current KPIs that we're doing and help us better translate that information to share with the general public, so that you all have a better understanding of where the dollars went and who was impacted and benefited.
Today I encountered 5 hours. So my question about infrastructure, and they're everywhere. I think now I have to get in front of the line. The hole was just that big, and you don't know until you hit the hole, but you hit a hole. What's being done about the streets in the city of St. Louis?
So one thing, and our director of operations would slap my wrist if I didn't say this, is if you encounter any potholes, make sure to put it a CSB request, whether you do it online, if you call it in, or you can even tag them on Twitter. They do track all of the CSB reports and then send out teams to these different locations to fill the potholes as quickly as possible. But in terms of the infrastructure dollars for ARPA, we put money into repaving 5 of our major arterials. So that is Goodfellow, Kings Highway, Grand, Jefferson, and Union. And so that money will go towards a big repaving effort that includes traffic calming improvements. And then we put money towards addressing top different hotspot crash locations. But there's additional money to repaving and arterials as well, but the best way for the city to know where those potholes are is you putting in those CSB requests to help us track them. And of course, you can always call to the mayor's office if there is one that you believe to be really dangerous, and we should send someone out as soon as possible.
And I'll just follow up on that quickly as it relates to the CSB. Filing those CSB reports are so important, and it just ironically, they're always here. They're not here today. Both of them are having car trouble. The two NIS neighborhood improvement specialists for the 10th Ward, Mr. Keith Miner and Ms. Cherie Hickman. They do an amazing job of following up on those, but they also track the need in the mayor's office and where they can deploy the resources. So I always say this to make sure you do your CSB reports. If you have a problem or trouble doing those, call myself, call one of the neighborhood improvement specialists. They can do it. I do it quickly. You know, it's almost, you know how stuff comes up on your phone because you do it so much. That's how mine is. And so we want to get them done because we want to make sure that these different departments know the need. As it relates to, if you were joking or not, I want to make sure you know that if there's an issue for real with your car, you can't file a claim. And there's a process that you can go through with the city to file a claim if you have real damage to your car due to a pothole.
What's CSB and where you file?
The Citizen Service Bureau, and I can make sure that you either get the link to it, or I can pull it up on your phone before you leave. You can lock it in. We have 622-4800 is the number you can call, but it's easier for me. It's always been easier to file them either online or on Twitter and it through your emails, and it tracks it. And again, they have meetings that they do regularly where they sit around a table and track where the different needs are, where the CSB reports come from. So we want to make sure that we do that. And I'll be honest, even when you used to look at the 26th Ward, there were pockets of people that really took advantage of the Citizen Service Bureau, and there were pockets where I knew for a fact there was a need, and they were not taking advantage of that Citizen Service Bureau. And just calling and complaining to someone else, and that's no shade, there's nothing bad about that. You want to talk to your neighbors, but somebody from the group has to report it, or else it won't be responded to. And that means if you just can't do it, call myself again and call our neighborhood improvement specialist, and we'll get it done for you. And I almost forgot to say this because I got to say this, not on Next Door. Next Door is not tracked by our city departments at all, not our police departments, not our streets departments, not anything. So again, Twitter, if you are a social media and you just like doing stuff on social media, say it on Twitter and at I think it's CSB or something. Yeah, it's really easy, and they respond to it immediately.
So what if you have one that hasn't been acted on yet? I gotta see if it's 2 weeks old.
Absolutely. Then our neighborhood improvement specialist, if they don't make it tonight, make sure you give it to me, and I'll follow up on it for you.
You mentioned those 5 major thoroughfares that have improvements coming up, but you also said traffic calming measures. What do those look like? Are they, I mean, I can't imagine speed bumps on Kingstown. So what are those?
So I'm going to give you examples. They're currently in the design phase, so they're looking throughout the intersection, or sorry, not only intersections, but that entire thoroughfare. And they're going to pick locations that could have the most opportunity to make the most impact for traffic calming. And so some of that might look like if it's a slower residential street that it intersects with, you might see curb bump outs. You might see that we will reduce the number of lanes potentially. And it could also look like putting in roundabouts, like Natural Bridge is a really good example of looking at a major thoroughfare that got very aggressive traffic calming improvements. So you can imagine things like that, but it could potentially have more greenery, it could be more cement. So I hope that helps.
And we're actually in the middle of a community-led process visioning for street calming on Page right now, which is actually not under our purview. It's under the state. It's considered a state highway, but they've been coming to Better Family Life and during examples, having meetings. You come out, you literally walk down the maps and pinpoint areas that you know there's a need, and that's on Page. So it's also a difference in knowing, you know, the different thoroughfares, which one is under the St. Louis City, which one is under a state highway. But again, those, to her point, there are a lot of different measures that are used, but a thoroughfare like those will not include speed humps and things of that nature.
This is just Carol Johnson speaking for Carol Johnson.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
I think the street calming, traffic calming measures that were taken on Natural Bridge are quite ugly, and I think they're also dangerous, because if you don't know where they are, if you're making a left turn off of one of the Marcuses or one of the other streets, and you don't know that big concrete platform is out there, particularly at night, it's dangerous. And so I think beautification certainly would be an added feature, but all those concrete platforms, I don't know if anybody's seen that but me. But that, Nats Bridge from Brand on down to the city limits, is a whole lot of concrete pads out in the middle of the street, along the curb, and it's dangerous and unsafe.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. I do think again, the design was very aggressive, more concrete, but MoDOT actually has shared really great information in how it's reduced the number of crashes for people driving, walking, and biking along that route. So it depends on how we look at safety. Everyone has their own definition of it, but overall, in terms of crashes that have occurred along that corridor, it has significantly reduced those numbers. So if you're interested in knowing more information, I'll share it with the Alderwoman, and she can send that out as well.
And I'll also share the link for the surveys and things that are going on Route D on Page Avenue as well. So what I'll do now is bring up our Director of Personnel and thank her again here. I'm glad someone referenced it earlier, that this is after hours for them, so we appreciate them taking the time to come out. This is Miss Sonia Burton Gray, Director of Personnel. Why I wanted her to be here, I mean, we talk constantly about different ways we can do recruitment here in the city of St. Louis, and her leadership has taken that department and made such strides already. But the fact that she would come out again here after and take the time out to, introduce herself. This is the Director of Personnel for the city of St. Louis. And so that's, this is actually what she loves to do, is to come out, connect, so that we can get some of these positions filled, which, hey, that's where the need comes in, right, with our 911 call centers, with our police departments, with our streets departments, with our refuse departments. A lot of the quality of life complaints that we have every day right now is really a staffing issue. So I want her to introduce herself. She has her cards, and then maybe make some connections.
All right. Thank you so much, Alderwoman. If you don't mind, I don't need a mic. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You're recording it. So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good. I'm so glad to be here with you, and thank you, Alderwoman, for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak to our community. So my name is Sonia Jenkins Gray, and I have been with the city of St. Louis for about 8 months now. And our esteemed mayor appointed me on November the 7th. And she's given me complete autonomy to come in and pretty much do an overhaul of the personnel department. And one of my primary focuses right now is recruiting. Because what's most important for me and for my team is that we have quality and experienced employees that are providing services to all of you, whether it's refuse, whether it's primarily in our streets department, if it is in parks and recreation, wherever that need is, we want to make sure that we have qualified people out there servicing you. And so as a result of that, what I've been focusing on is our processes for hiring people. Because it takes quite a long time to get people hired within the city of St. Louis. Now, we're governed by a lot of things that in corporate America, we don't have those restrictions. And so we have the charter, we have administrative guidelines, we have civil service rules, et cetera, that we've been trying to revise, et cetera, to be able to hire people. We want to get to the point of we are able to hire people on the spot. There's no reason why we should not be able to do that if people are qualified. We no longer have the luxury of being able to pick and choose. Everyone is hiring these days. So within our processes, while we're trying to work through these processes, other companies have gone in and they've hired the people that we're trying to go after. So we're trying to minimize the amount of time that it takes to get hired with the city of St. Louis. With that being said, I'm sure all of you have seen it in the news with dispatchers and EMS, the issues with being able to hire. Well, I can stand here today and tell you we have 132 people on a list that are qualified to be dispatchers. So we are expeditiously moving forward with getting people evaluated and getting them on lists to be hired. So I ask all of you, if you know people, I believe that there are people in the city of St. Louis that want to work. Do you believe that? Yes, they do. We just have to do more outreach, like myself being here tonight and going to other community events and letting people know that things are changing. The city of St. Louis is a great place to work. We offer benefits that most companies don't even offer anymore. For example, a pension plan in which our employees don't even have to contribute to. And if they've worked for the city for 5 years, then they're vested in that plan. So there are a lot of advantages of working for the city of St. Louis that we're trying to get the word out and let people know about that. So if there's anybody that you know, send them my way. I have business cards. I'm always reachable. I keep my cell phone by my nightstand. Anytime you need me, I'm there. So you call. If you know of people, you can refer them to me and I will help them through the process. In October of this year, we're hosting our first ever City of St. Louis, sponsored by the Personnel Department, job fair that's going to be held in City Hall. And I'm hopeful by that time we'll have everything worked out and we'll be able to interview and at least offer contingent job offers during that job fair. So again, I appreciate it. I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have, and it could be related to recruiting or anything dealing with personnel within the city. Yes.
How long does it take the city of St. Louis to hire, and where would you like it to be? Well, you said on the spot, but like yeah, just to get a picture of how.
Just a picture. I can tell you that prior to my coming on board, it could take up to 2 to 3 months to get someone hired. We have been able to at least get that down to 3 to 4 weeks once we have candidates identified. And again, the goal would be to be able to offer positions on the spot if people are qualified.
And what can we as citizens do to advocate so you have what you need?
That's an excellent question. What you can do to advocate, if there are other events like this that me or anyone on my team can come and visit and share with what's going on and the types of positions that we have, we'd love to participate in that. The other way that you can advocate, people in your families, people in your communities, even those that are retired that may want to come back and work. We are open, have open arms to everyone. So we always see that, especially if you know people that have worked for the city of St. Louis before. One of the things that Mayor Jones and the Board of Aldermen have done, we just increased pay rates. And so with our with our dispatcher positions, with our heavy equipment operators, et cetera, those pay rates have been increased, and so they're much more attractive. One of the big things for us that we're really excited about is that the residency requirement, as of August 28th, will have been lifted. And so therefore, anyone that pretty much works or lives within an hour of the city, they're now eligible to work for the city of St. Louis, where that was a restriction for us before. Because there would be candidates, but then when they found out that they had to actually live in the city limits, and they may have a family or children, church, different things, and they weren't willing to give all of that up, that's no longer a restriction for them. So the residency requirement is going to be a big one that we're hoping will attract applicants to the city of St. Louis. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's really great that you're going community to community and kind of making more personal connections, but what are you doing on sort of like the digital front to find other communities or sort of in the marketing space?
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing in the Department of Personnel, we are going more digitized and electronic. And so we now have accounts, say, for example, with LinkedIn. We're doing more virtual interviews. And so if someone is lives outside of the city or outside of the state, we're open. We even have relocation that we can assist with moving expenses, et cetera, if there are people that want to move to St. Louis and work for the city. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you answered a piece of my question. I'm also sort of curious, like just like in the recruiting realm, like just getting those things kind of known in different digital communities.
Okay, so one of the things that we've done most recently in the Department of Personnel, please follow us We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram now where we're putting all of our jobs and things out there, and we're becoming more social media savvy, in which we didn't have those things before. So please follow us, Department of Personnel, St. Louis. Follow us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay.
While she's passed, if anybody else wants to take a card, please take a card. And one of the other things I add, because it's a passion place of mine, one of the first pieces of legislation that I worked on here in the city of St. Louis was to ban the box. So if you have family members or neighbors or someone that you may know in your churches and your communities that have been justice involved, they can still get a job in the city of St. Louis. And that's big, because a lot of times you'll hear community members say, you know, I don't think I'm gonna get the job, this, that, and other because of that. That's not an issue in the city of St. Louis. Again, we passed ban the box here, and that makes a difference, and we show that, you know, this is about second chances and giving people the boost that they tell us to pull up on all the time, right? And so make sure that we connect people with those opportunities. And if nobody else has a question for her, I want to make sure I show some familiar faces in here, some people that we see every time, Miss Val and Miss Pat, that are always our smiling faces when they come and sign in. Those are like my fairy 10th Ward godmothers. And so they always show up and show out, and I just appreciate them for everything that they always do and continue to do, even the things that you see and then the things that we don't see. I want to bring up Darren Johnson. And I also want to bring up Miss Cynthia Watson. I want to make sure you all see these faces, because we're here for you. This is our job. And so you might want to know, who is Darren Johnson? Darren Johnson is the 10th Ward representation on the Youth Council for the Board of Aldermen. And he signed up for this himself and went through the process and was appointed and was sworn in, which was a big deal. And I'm so excited. I was so excited to meet him at the swearing in. And I know we hear so many bad things about our youth here in the city of St. Louis. We have some amazing youth, and we have examples of it right here. And so if you have a youth group at your church, or if you have some organizations that you would like for me and Darren to come to, I'm just signing him up, because he's like your youth alderperson, right, for the 10th Ward. So he's our representation. I also want to announce on her first day, how lucky are we to have her on her first day here, Miss Cynthia Watson, who is our 10th Ward legislative assistant now. And so we are blessed to have her. I've known Ms. Watson for a while. She's a fierce advocate with a level of passion for the community that is unmatched. And out of the people that apply for that position, of course, her resume and her advocacy stood out the most. So we're so excited to have her. I want them to introduce themselves. We also did have Mr. Minor come in, who is one of our 10th Ward Neighborhood Improvement Specialists. And Ms. Karen Clifford, everybody knows her. She's a director now. She's moved up, but you see she hasn't left us because she still shows up. She says this is her heart. This area is her heart. I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Maya White, who is our 10th Ward SLDC neighborhood director. Neighborhood manager. So for instance, we have representation here from Saul's. Does everybody know what Saul's is? I'm glad. Let me tell you, Saul's is a grocery store been in existence on 1206 North Kings Highway for 60-something years. 66 years. 66 years. So, in a time when so many of our communities have been deemed food deserts, they have stayed here and hung in here. And we're happy to have them here. But these are the connections that they make, because when your businesses have needs, then SLDC, our director, Maya White is the person that they should be connected with. So after you all introduce yourselves, I'll bring up the police department, and then we will move on to the closing.
How y'all doing today? I'm Deron Johnson. My bad, I meant to correct you. But y'all can call me DJ, most definitely. I'd rather y'all call me DJ than Deron. Okay. So it's a blessing to be here today. I'm glad I'm here today to see all y'all faces, and thank y'all for letting me come up here today.
All right, DJ. We're just introducing ourselves. Okay. And tell them how you want them to contact you.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Watson. I know quite a few people in this room. I got family in the room, other neighbors that I call my family too. I am a product of this West End. I grew up on 6003 Enright. I won't tell you what year, because that'll make you count and say, oh my God. But I'm a product of Solian High School, graduated from there with honors. You never tell anybody that St. Louis public high schools weren't any good, because I'm a product of that high school. And some other classmates that graduated with me, and somebody's raising their hand back there. So, went away to school, lived in New York, 3 careers, buyer. I talk fast, I'm gonna do it fast. A buyer for Macy's in New York, moved to Atlanta, came back here, 6 Bear Fuller, director of a social service agency, director of global accounts for another company that I retired from in December. Been out from work. Breakfast with Shameem one day, and she says, you ever thought about working for the city? She tells me about this legislative aid position. Never been on the city's website, because I've always been in corporate America. So I applied, and I would tell her, you know, if you find somebody you think you can work with better than me, you should get them. She got several text messages on that. So I am very engaged in the West End. I started West End Neighbors. I got recruited by Jennifer Joyce or D. Joyce Hayes, I can't remember which one. Started West End Neighbors. It is still going relatively strong by other people. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Chartered a second graduate chapter here with Shameem's mother. What else can I tell you? I have a big mouth. I fight the system. My husband is retired 35-year veteran of St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. I am very, very concerned about what goes on in this city. One of the things I say, what affects you affects me. What affects you affects me. If you live in the city, we hear gunshots at night. I've had one come through my bedroom window. I've got a bullet lodged in my deck. I won't even sit out there at night. But what affects you affects me. We all need to be part of the process. My goal is to work with Shameem, whatever she needs me to do, if it means going to meetings, and I'll go to meetings and I'll do whatever I can to assist her in assisting you. But we all have to be part of that process and get other people to get off their rear ends, that's how I'm gonna say this, get off their rear ends and stop complaining, because you only complain when it's something that you want. But if people be part of the process, we can move mountains that we don't have here, so we'll be moving the Ozark Mountains down there. But if people get involved, part of the process, we can do anything. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's the perfect segue for what I'm about to say. I also like to acknowledge our former 18th Ward, which is now in the 10th Ward Committee man, Pastor John Watson, who is now a building inspector for the city of St. Louis. I'm glad what she said is what affects you affects me. And don't forget, we do have the voting machines over here. After the presentation from the police department, we'll break for the rest of the meeting. You know, you can always pull me to the side. If anybody has a question for the greater good, then that's what we'll do quickly. But after that, if you have something specifically for me, that's the whole theme of the one-on-one, is that you can pull aside, because a lot of times in these meetings, and if you don't think of something while you're in the meeting, reach back out. But a lot of times in the meeting, some people just are not comfortable talking in big crowds, which is why I created this one-on-one, more intimate space. I'm glad that, again, she said, what affects you affects me. A couple of things. I want to acknowledge my sister, Jaslyn Harris, who is in the room. Wave your hand. She's with the Midwest Brain Injury Foundation. If anybody doesn't know, I care for my little brother, who is a TBI, a traumatic brain injury survivor. And it was a new world for me. I was kind of thrust into when my mom unexpectedly passed. And I literally, it's no lie, stumbled up in their organization just from Googling stuff. And they have been such a blessing. And so she's going to be making a presentation for anybody who might need that, need to meet that need, rather, like I did, and you just don't know where to go, because a lot of things are in place for different ailments, but traumatic brain injury is a specific ailment, and it's a specific need. And again, what affects you affects me. I would be remiss as I bring up Captain Zarek and Captain Marks to come on up to tell you, what affects you affects me. My daughter was the victim of gun violence about a week and a half ago. She was shot twice. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the police department, our St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, for their response that night, and up until right now when I'm standing here talking to you all today. I'm very proud. I say it all the time. I'm proud of the relationship that I built with our St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, even when it's not popular to have that relationship. And why is because I serve in a community that the challenges between the community and police department are there. And so when they don't have a relationship or they're not comfortable calling the police department, they call me, and I have to be able to call the police department. So I've never been disrespectful to our police department. I've never gone against anything that they've needed. I've always supported them. You can check my votes and my record because I know the need, but it's a different need when it hits you at your doorstep. And again, the response that you all have given me has been unmatched. So I just want to thank you all for that. I want you all to, and I'm going to be doing more formal thank yous too. And as it relates to my daughter is okay. And that's nothing but God, because a lot of times when you get shot a week later, so you could be at a funeral, but a week later from my daughter getting shot, we went on a college tour. And that was not just because of the response from the police department, but also I'll be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Cardinal Glennon and their surgery and ER teams and Dr. Punch. Dr. Punch, I had to have her come in because, I'm sorry, Dr. Punch charged it to my head, not my heart. I had to have him come in. He has created a space called the BRIC, a Bullet Recovery Injury Clinic, a clinic especially for bullet injuries. And if you haven't experienced, you don't know. We came home with gauze and a one-pager for my daughter. And so being able to take her to the BRIC for Dr. Punch, one, removed the bullet out of my daughter's abdomen that the surgery team had decided not to take out at the hospital. But the overall holistic care that they have given my daughter ongoing up again now till today and until our ongoing appointments, again, it's just immeasurable. So I'll be doing formal thank yous. But thank you again. I want you all to introduce you all. We share this here in the 10th ward. We have the bulk of it is the 5th district with Captain Marks, but we do have a piece of it, and there's representation here for the 2nd district, which is Captain Zurich. Thank you.
Good evening. This is an incredible woman and an incredible mother, and I tell her all the time, she just awes me. So I love coming to her one-on-one meetings because it really gives everybody in the community, as she moves around from place to place within her ward, she can come to the residents where they are. So I really love that she's able to do that, and I love coming to her meetings every month. So something I would just like to tell, can you hear me? I did bring some car clubs. We sell them for cost for $20. You can also buy them at the 5-Star Senior Center, so we brought some here for you today. And I brought some gun locks. Those two things are very important, and that's because gun safety and protecting children is very important. And so we have gun locks here for anyone that needs one or knows a family member that has a gun that would like to keep it safe so we can protect our children in our homes. And they're back there, and I will be here after the meeting. And why we bring car clubs is cars, when these cars are stolen, it impacts our lives so tremendously, and a lot of these kids don't understand that. It prevents people from getting to work, from going to the doctor, from taking their child to daycare. So the ramifications of that are huge. So anything that we can do to bring it to you to help you protect your vehicle, whether you have some other anti-theft device, but if it's more convenient for you, I always bring them to the meeting so you have an opportunity to buy one. They're $20. And also the biggest crime are either auto thefts and car break-ins. So I ask you please, and I handed out some literature before the meeting kind of talking about some of the bigger crimes that we're having, which and those are my two most popular and prevalent crimes. So I just ask you please don't leave anything valuable in sight. Please lock it up or don't bring it. Please don't leave guns in your cars. Please leave them at home. There are people that are breaking in the cars looking for weapons. Please do not leave your valuables after you park your car and hide them in your car or put them in your trunk. Please do so before you arrive at your venue. So that's the main piece of advice I would like to give you this evening. And I don't like to take up a lot of the time at these meetings, but what I like to do is I will stick around after. You can always send me an email. I like to pride myself. You can go to the department's website under your community, and you can pick North Patrol. I'm in the 5th District. You can pick South Patrol, and Captain Zarek will be at South Patrol. And I pride myself that when you contact me, the best way is to email me. I like to have that response within 24 hours. So I like to pride myself and my team and my staff to take care of those concerns. We'll get back with you right away. And then we'll follow up with you to tell you what we were able to do regarding that. And so if you have any concerns, please email them to me. And I promise, even if there's an area where you want, my biggest complaint is quality of life issues at meetings, and it's usually traffic. So I welcome your feedback where you would like to see some traffic enforcement, because I have the ability to do my patrol plan and put some officers out doing traffic enforcement in areas, and I typically get that information when I go to meetings, so I'd like to hear those recommendations from my citizens. And I'm going to turn it over to Captain Zarek.
How are you, folks? Good. If you're confused, it says lieutenant on my badge. I'm an acting captain. It was an order made by the chief when he restructured the department. There's a test coming up in November. I'm still praying on it, whether or not I'm going to take it. If I got to work with aldermen like this one all the time, it would be a slam dunk, yes. I have the little sliver of Whiteown, Skinker, and also Forest Park. To echo what the captain said, our crime is driven in the 2nd District a lot by auto thefts, auto-related crimes. And not only that, these individuals that are stealing the cars are using them for more violent crimes. They'll pull up on someone in carjack and still use that stolen car the rest of the night, and then they'll have 2. They'll do the robberies. One thing we are seeing a little bit of in different areas is people are still breaking into Hyundais and Kias, even though the device has been put on the steering column. They don't really care a whole lot about that. So if you have a club and you think I shouldn't use it anymore because I have a device now on the column, keep using the club. And we don't make profit, and I know you don't make profit, so I would encourage you also to get one if you don't have one, especially if it's a Kia or a Hyundai, but for any car, really. Again, I'm here as much to support this kind lady at the end as I am to hear any questions you might have. Like Captain Mark said, who I worked for up until she moved north, she taught me a whole lot, and I've used her guidance to kind of start off my career in command in the 2nd. But I also realize there's questions that maybe you're not comfortable asking in a large group, so I'll be off in a corner or two for a little while before I head home to hear if you have any concerns. But do you want us to open it up for general questions for both Captain Marks and I, or are there any general questions? Yes, ma'am.
The other officer came from the 2nd District. He had to come down Skinker. He had to come east on Delmar from Skinker. Of course, something was going on in the East Loop. But it took him 45 minutes to an hour to get there. He's steady on the phone with the dispatchers, and they're telling me they're 10 minutes away, they're 10 minutes away. My response to them was, I could have been laying on the floor dead in my house when my husband got there. So you hold on the phone for 911 for them to respond. Then I hang up. As soon as I hang up, my phone rings back. There's nobody there still on the phone. The recording comes on. So had I been say, a different type of senior person, they could have had a heart attack and died.
Absolutely.
And they're waiting for the police.
Here.
Well, I'll say, and then I'm going to pass it on. We're, first of all, deeply, deeply sorry. We are in a full crisis mode when it comes to our 911 evaluator, dispatcher shortage. The chief was at a meeting I was at last month where he mentioned we were 40 down with a 90 authorized strength. It affects the police department as well as it affects the citizens. You can imagine some of the worst case scenarios where officers could get hurt because we're not getting updated information, we're not getting calls answered. I personally had a friend call me while he was in the movies. He was taking pictures of a loaded gun he found in a parking lot, and along with the text, he was on hold for 15 minutes. And you're just shaking your head. Is it always the case? No. What I would give you some advice, if you live alone, you have my full support and prayers. But if you don't, there's another plan if you can, but I realize sometimes you can't. But if you can't, I don't want citizens obviously going out and confronting people or who might be armed or what have you, but try and get that chain going amongst you and your neighbors. If it's a nighttime, for instance, you're on hold for 911. Hopefully it's not for too long, but if someone else in the house can start calling loved ones and people around your house where lights start coming on. And again, I don't want people coming out and confronting somebody that's, we do have car clouders who come out and they're fully armed and they're covering the door of a house, they're covering the car, they're covering the street if police come down. And then you have two of them that are breaking into cars. So it's not worth getting yourself killed over someone breaking your car. But the more serious things, if you have two phones in the house, one's always should be on hold for 911 while the others start rallying the troops in the block. But again, can't stress enough. Don't call a neighbor and don't get that neighbor to come out and challenge somebody who might be armed. It's just not worth it over property. So I'm terribly sorry. We are in crisis mode. Just like our manpower, we could go on and on about that. This is not something that's going to be fixed overnight. It's impossible to fix something like this overnight. So we're in it for the long haul. I think the news, the recent tragedies are going to spur some action. I know the alder people are very serious about it. I think we're past the point of not being able to do anything about it. So I do think there's going to be improvement, but there's no way it can happen overnight. So we are still going to have some rough waters. And sorry if I spoke too long on that.
I would just like to remind people, if you are on hold with 911, please do not hang up because you will go back to the bottom of the cycle. So please stay on the line. And that in particular incident you're talking about, we'll have to talk at the end. I'll have to get more information from you, and I can trace that exact call, and I can tell you exactly what happened. I just don't have that information today, but if I get the date and around the time you called, I can get all that information for you and report back to you.
Yes, ma'am. Do you mind giving us a general area? No, you don't have to give anything specific.
Kind of 5800 block between Delmar, Simmons, and Case, that's all that area.
Yep. I was just out riding your neighborhood this morning between about probably 6:30 to around 9. So unfortunately, I want to apologize because we have very similar, about the same amount of officers in each district. So it could be, unfortunately, there may be more calls for service where you were living, and maybe that those officers were responding because each district is about as busy as the other. So where you're talking about is up in the 5th district. And so the officers, when their priority one is they answer the 911 calls. So as those calls come in, as you know, when you call, sometimes you're on hold. So as those calls come in, they have to prioritize, and they respond to the 911 calls first, then they respond to the non-emergency calls. But sometimes there are calls in the queue. Sometimes we have a few calls backed up. So those patrol cars that you're seeing are most likely going on calls. And then when we're caught up on calls, then we encourage self-initiated activity and traffic enforcement during their downtime. And then, of course, community engagement, footbeats, and getting out into the community and stopping at community events. Because when we learn of a community event in our districts, we put it out to our district and we ask our officers to stop by. So there's a plethora of reasons why you haven't seen a patrol car, but we all have the same amount of patrol cars, so they're all out doing something. So unfortunately, I apologize you haven't seen them, but I'm sure hoping that changes. You are the 5th district. You're my district. Yes, so, and you're free to come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to talk to you.
And
Thank you.
sadly, there are nights where we roll the whole night, where a car will just go from call to call. And I've been in the public affairs end of things since my early part of my career, and I used to go to meetings and tell people, call 911, because that's how they figure out the statistics the next year on how to allocate manpower, who got the most calls. Our problem property officers need those phone calls, but there are people that I don't blame you for being discouraged if you're on hold for a little too long. But I'm just asking you, give us a chance. Don't give up. The majority of our calls, believe it or not, more than 80% are still answered in the first 15 seconds. But there are times, storms, Big accident on a highway can take up a whole lot. A shooting event where 12 different people are hearing shots fired and all of them are calling, that there can be a strain on the system. And again, we're deeply sorry for that. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I'm in the West End community, and over by, in between Exo and Plymouth, there are folks that kind of go at a high rate of speed. And then like I work at a church, and then there's like kids that's going to tuck pointing job training program that have to cross the street, and folks just come down there and just boom, like flying like, for lack of a better word, bats out of hell.
No, Officer Stanley, can you put that on my notepad? And if you wanted to, if anyone has like individual specific things related to your neighborhood that may not be specific, a general question that everyone would need the answers for, that's how I love to address people one-on-one, and that's why I love these smaller meetings. So, and if you'd like to stay, I would love to get more information, but we'll write that address down and I'll send that out on my patrol plan. Thank you.
And the chief has heard, the Traffic Safety Division, I don't know if you follow our Twitter, but we're hitting every major, I think, corridor in the city first. And Skinker, I hope that's everybody's concern, Kings Highway, if you've ever driven on Kings Highway. My streets were Hampton and Jameson as well. I know the good captain has others, but they're writing like 160 tickets a day, and it's actually starting to have a little impact. So for the small, there's still that stop sign near a school that's in the middle of a neighborhood we'd want to hear about, because those are the ones where we can get a young person injured or worse. But what they are doing, it's Colonel Lauer, that was a retired, his son, Paul Lauer, who's the commander over traffic safety. They're really, and they're enlisting the help of district officers who can work overtime, so it's been a big help. But I would say probably about 3,000 since that started. You, sir, and then you. This gentleman had a question for. I'm quoting the chief when I say that, so I'm pretty confident it's pretty close to being accurate.
Yeah. In addition to just like having additional dispatchers, are there any other sorts of improvements that you're working on?
Well, that's a bigger decision than mine, but the mayor has talked about incorporating different agencies, cross-training dispatchers. Fire and EMS dispatchers sometimes has to give life-saving advice that maybe a police dispatcher is not equipped to handle. So cross-training would be a good thing, and I think everything's on the table. Would you agree? Yeah. Yes, sir.
General question on the traffic control, running stoplights and speed and all that. I heard or dreamt or read that we're looking at cameras again.
The chief, again, I'll quote the chief. He likes cameras. He said this at a neighborhood meeting I was at. There's some legal hurdles I think would have to be navigated, but it's something that I think when you really look at what's happened post-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, the state finally did something really good, I think, if you'll agree, that we won't see as many temp tags because we now have to pay taxes when we buy our car and not have a temp tag flying off the back of our car for 3 years. So that's one thing. But this is, it's not just not having insurance. It's like the captain said. You get your car wrecked, stolen, it changes your life. So if there's somebody that's uninsured and running around and doesn't have a license and rear ends you and leaves the scene, your life is completely turned upside down. Medical issues that you may take a child to a doctor's appointment, all these things wrapped up. You talk about stress. I don't know if there's anything more major other than what can happen to our loved ones. So it's becoming more and more a priority again, which is a good thing.
All right, we're going to wrap up the questions just for sake of time, but if you have any individual questions, we'll be back in the back.
I'm White
Thank
on
you.
Stinker, and God bless Christy, she's everything else.
She's everything. Yes, she is. She's the other 7 neighborhoods. And as it relates to the Public Safety Access Center Point Center, that's the PSAP. That'll be the center that we did just get. We put city funded in, which I fully supported in. We have state funding that's coming. We're working on some other grants, some other funding to get that space created. But to fill in the gaps between that is another reason why we want the personnel director here. So if you know people that we can go ahead and get them hired and get them in their spaces, that'll make a difference too. And always being proactive on that. So with that, I want to make sure I bring up Mr. Minor. Ms. Hickman was not able to make it, but if you have quality of life questions when we disperse, Mr. Minor has 4 of the neighborhoods, Lewis Place, Fountain Park, Academy, Sherman Park, and, oh, you just have 3? I thought you had 4. Okay. So the others are Ms. Hickman, but he fills in the gap for everybody, and Ms. Cliff Karen is here too. She's being shy. She's not gonna come over, she'll be here. These are quality of life. Officer Stanley, you wave your hand. You might not, if you don't know him, that's a good thing. That means you haven't had an issue with dumping, because he is like our whisperer, wanderer here in the community when we deal with our responses on illegal dumping and trash and refuse not being picked up here in the city of St. Louis. He does with the cameras, and he's just amazing with all of that. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Mr. Minor? Okay. Mr. Minor.
Yes, Keith Minor. Yeah, I want to make sure you have my contact information, and we can talk one-on-one even the more. That is 314-906-6155, 314-906-6155, Keith Minor. And I work Keith, Keith, and I will forward any other neighborhood that's represented here tonight to the proper neighborhood improvement specialist, considering I work in the Academy, Lewis Place, and Fountain Park neighborhoods.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I have been blowing up the Alderwoman and Keith's cell phone about issues on my block, and thank you, the street hump is being put in today. Appreciate you.
Great, great.
Yeah, I'm so glad my sister brought that up, because that was one of the things I was going to close out with, was to thank you all. Well, I want to thank Andy and Steve. I want to thank our STL TV team here, Andy and Steve. They're here, and they are recording this, so if you had neighbors that weren't able to make it and you want to share that with them. So this space, again, was created one-on-one. It's always the last Monday of the month. And I created this space because while I attend all of the different neighborhood organizations and neighborhood meetings and block meetings in the ward, I also, again, know that sometimes people are not comfortable talking in certain spaces. So I wanted to create a space where, again, I show up in different locations across the entire 10th ward, making myself not only available but accessible here, like office hours in the neighborhood, because the 10th ward, is making sure you all know we are still in the 10th ward. The entire Forest Park is the 10th ward. And so, but I cannot do my job. None of us here can do our job without you all. So the fact that my sister brought that up about, she said blowing it up, but she can't blow my phone up. That's what my phone is here for. That's what I'm here for. So you can't, and even through my challenges, I've just been blessed with so many people around me that help me to stand up when I feel like I can't. So thank you all so much for showing up. Please do not, I will say if there's 1 or 2 questions for the greater good, then we can ask, that'll be fine. If not, I'd like for us to go ahead. If you have questions for myself, our neighborhood improvement specialist, the police department, and please take advantage of the opportunity to see our brand new, Ben, can you come up for a second? He's already working, so. I want to make sure that you just introduce okay, he's being shy too, but that's our Democratic commissioner for the Board of Elections, and take advantage of coming to see this so that when we come to election day that you're not like, what is this going on? Because these are the new electronic voting machines that were purchased for the city of St. Louis. So please make sure you signed in. I had a few people that we can't quite navigate their handwriting for their emails. So if you have a neighbor that says they were here and they didn't get the notice, please let me know, or email or text me so I can add them to the list. You can always sign up yourself on my website at www.ShameemClark-Hubbard.com. You can sign up there to receive the emails regularly and any other information that's going on in the ward. If there's no other questions for the greater good, we'll disperse and work around the room, and I ask my good brother here, maybe come pray us out. Any questions for the greater good? Okay.
Hey, everybody. My name is Pastor Anthony Johnson. I'm one of the pastors at New City Fellowship West End. which, like, yeah. So I'm going to pray with us. Pray for us. God, we thank you for this opportunity to come and talk about working in this city. We pray that you continue to help our neighbors and us continue to work together to help St. Louis be a destination spot, because we all know the goodness that's in this city, Lord. So help us in that endeavor. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
And thank you, Forest Park Forever. Oh, and we did have someone purchase a car club to give away. So if someone is here and you know there's a need and they might not be able to resource the car club, please see Captain Marks because she has it for free here today.